Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Just a Job. Yes, I have a different background. I am traveling with my mom this week, and y'all, it's so fun. I said, y'all, I'm in Tennessee.
It's rubbing off on you.
I didn't even bring boots, and I feel like such a silly girl for not bringing my boots to Nashville. But this is your reminder to go on girls trips with your mom or friends. It's very fun. But before we jump into Morgan's episode, we have a little bit of stand-up notes. And the big bubbling question or topic, you like how I use that? Is Poppy. Poppy sold for $1.95 billion to PepsiCo. And we've our self-proclaimed beverage gals over here on the pod. And Ellen, I want to know your initial thoughts.
That is an insane amount of money was my first thought. And then my second thought was Pepsi. Ew. Like, why not to Coca-Cola? You can tell where my brand loyalty is.
Yeah, fair.
And then my third thought was, I hope Pepsi doesn't like VC it and make it, or not VC, private equity it and like change all the ingredients
just completely
and
destroy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like the founder like ideally would not allow something like that to happen. I don't know, but those are my like out of the box like first couple of thoughts that hit my head.
Yeah. Similar. Whoa, golly, that's a lot of money. But also to the interesting timing of it all with the whole Super Bowl flack and then this. But regardless, supporting women, this is incredible because it's a women-started, founded, owned business. And if you're a Shark Tank fanatic like me, it's the best show to watch. I love Shark Tank. They put this show on, or they put the product on the show. It was bought by the owner of Vitamin Water and just completely took off. And they like ran with this whole Gen Z. They created a clothing line in Target. And so I think about the humble beginnings of it all, right? The selling at the farmer's market with this cute kombucha-y type brand, and then how it just grew into this like whole movement, which a lot of companies are following suit and doing these healthy soda alternatives. So I am an Olipop loyalist. I prefer Olipop over Poppy, but regardless, that is where my heart stands. Ellen, you had mentioned that there was some, kind of fodder around the Shark Tank and how Bethany Frankel commented on her almost not opposition, but choice to not pursue this. So what did you see?
I think it's so funny that she has such a following on TikTok now and how people like don't associate her or know her through Real Housewives of New York, which is
the OG. Yeah.
Right. Which is like how she rose to fame and obviously had success with her Skinny Girl brand. But I think it's so funny that people like know her now, or like younger people have discovered her through TikTok, which is just like so bizarre to me. Maybe that just is showing my age. Anyways, she a couple of things around it. So Alex Earl, the like TikTok influencer, actually she invested in Poppy. So people are talking about like, what her payday could possibly be and how like interesting that, that's the route that she took. And Bethany also having multiple drink companies and having extreme success. She was talking about that she was one of the sharks that was present when Poppy came in to pitch their product, which at the time I think it was called Mother or something like that. And it was apple cider based, so more like of that kombucha taste. And Bethany was talking about how people were commenting to her, oh my God, you missed out. Like, oh, bad business choice that you didn't choose to invest. And she stood firm in how she was like, no, this was, business is like a relationship, and choosing your business partner is essential to the success of the business. And she goes, I didn't like the taste of it at that time. I had other ventures at the time that would have been like in conflict or that she preferred one over the other. And so she was just essentially talking about how important it is to like make relationship decisions for your business. Yeah. And she even went as far to say that like if she had, put a bid in, just to have another company in her portfolio, like it wouldn't have been the right fit. And they probably wouldn't have had the success that they had today. So it's just an interesting perspective of, objectively, you look at almost $2 billion and you're like, that would have been nice, right?
Who
Like,
wouldn't say that?
right. Like, I would have loved to be a part of that payday. But granted, of course, she is very successful and is certainly not light in the wallet perspective, but just interesting to hear from a business lens of how it just wouldn't have made sense, and she stayed firm on it. I thought that was cool.
Hindsight's always 2020 when there's almost 2 billion
Good Lord
on the table.
Whoa.
But I can appreciate that rather than just taking the, oh my God, I see this as a cash cow
right
situation. I invest in products that I would personally buy if, I had to spend the $2 on it for a can. So I think that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. Also funny that people didn't know Bethany Frankel from Real Housewives of New York. That's like one of the OG when they're like holding the apple.
Oh, right.
Yes, I love that. But speaking of investments, small businesses, CPG, today we are joined with Morgan. So we're really excited to share her episode. If you're in the business of baking, sourdough, crackers, building brands, health, anything, this episode is for you. So we're super excited to share Morgan's episode with you. But before we hop into it, Ellen, any parting thoughts?
We learned a lot about sourdough in this episode, and I've now started checking on my sourdough loaves. So thank you, Morgan, for that heads up. And I'm ready to put it in a purchase for the crackers, and we should do a little taste test. That, and then have a side of Olipop.
I love it.
Just because we can.
I love it. Well, everybody enjoy your day and enjoy Morgan's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we are joined by Morgan Murdock. She is a registered dietitian that created Unbothered Foods, a deliciously fermented sourdough cracker brand. Morgan graduated with degrees in both community health and nutrition and loves helping people foster joy around food. Welcome to the podcast, Morgan.
Yay. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited. Another fellow Kansas City gal recently moved back. Yes. And we were fortunate to make the connection thanks to Kelly Ann, who we had on the podcast a while back. She introduced me to Morgan. We were able to connect and learned a little bit about her journey to building Unbothered Foods. So I'm excited to jump into it and learn more about you and your career. So we'll take it back to young Morgan. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Growing up, I was super shy. So I don't know if I really knew what I wanted to be. I was definitely one of those kids that it kind of just changed all the time because, this person said they wanted to be that. So I thought, okay, maybe I should want to be that. But I think I always wanted something where I was helping people. Teacher was something that I always thought that I wanted to be. And I bless the teachers on this land. I would not want to be a teacher. So I am glad that I didn't force myself to do what I wanted to do in kindergarten. But I think I would have said teacher or veterinarian.
I love that the two helping professions is or three, it's nursing, teaching, or helping animals in some way, and being a veterinarian. Those are the typical stock answers, right? And I think especially as women, the default to teacher is kind of funny to me.
Oh my gosh. No, that is so true.
So when did your idea or passion for nutrition come in? Was how quickly before school or maybe during school, college, when I say school, did that come to you as something that you would like to pursue a career in?
Yeah, so both of my parents were involved in healthcare. So that was always kind of in the house. My mom was a nurse. My dad's a recreational therapist, helping old people that are sick and injured. And that was always in the house. And we had, my parents focused on healthy habits growing up and everything like that. And I studied community health in college. I mean, I started off I wanted to be a physical therapist, and then I didn't really know what I wanted to be. And then everything kind of came back to I really love food, and I love focusing on how we can improve our health through food. And so then I started a community health degree at the University of Kansas. And that was cool. It was kind of like a broader, like public health approach. And I think I found myself just really narrowing in a lot on the food aspect of it. And that's when I started to pursue dietetics and nutrition. And I think a lot of dietitians get into nutrition just through their own like interest. And a lot of the time it's because it's like those of us that have like a hyper fixation on trying to eat so healthy and perfect and all of this stuff. That's a lot of dietitians. And then you get into it and you realize like, oh, food is so much more than just, telling someone to eat healthy. It's like, do they have access to that food? What is their history with food? And that led me into like being passionate about digestion because I felt like I could actually help people live a better life because they could understand what their triggers were. They could have more confidence in that type of a thing. So, in the middle of college, in the middle of my community health degree, that's when I, really realized my passion was around food and nutrition.
I always love hearing when people talk about their passions because you can just tell that you light up and you have energy. You gain energy, but also like give energy. And so I think it's very evident that you've found your calling. And then obviously we'll get into like how you kind of transformed that calling. But in college, what were, some of the fundamental classes or, internships or really like instructors that helped shape your career? Because I had a roommate that was getting her degree in dietetics, and I remember she was like constantly door was shut. She was studying all the time,
Sounds like a
and so like that's
dietitian.
my only framework, of like what it takes to be a dietitian. So can you kind of just take us through what your college experience was like?
Yeah, well, lots of I wouldn't really call myself type A, but lots of dietitians are very type A, like perfectionists.
Got it.
So that checks out that was your roommate. Yeah, dietetics. I mean, it's crazy because, you go into it thinking like, oh, this is about, again, just food and eating healthy, which, it is. But also you have to learn just so much about the human body. Like we had to do, anatomy lab with cadavers, physiology, organic chemistry, like all of this. And I think I was surprised because I will go into a lot of things blind in my life. Just like, okay, we're going to figure this out. And I didn't realize like, wow, this is extremely science heavy, which it makes sense. But those classes were harder for me, the like hard sciences. But lots of science, lots and lots of science. And I think a really important thing for me that I pursued when I switched over to dietetics was more just like I would reach out to so many different dietitians and people that were in nutrition to try to shadow or mentor or like, let me pick your brain. I'm a student, like that type of thing. I did that so much. And that was huge for me. I shadowed Whole Foods actually used to have dietitians on staff, like at every store. They don't anymore, but
cool.
They used to do that, and they used to do like store tours and cooking classes. Hy-Vee still, it's a regional grocery chain for those that aren't around the Midwest, but Hy-Vee still has that. But Whole Foods used to have that at all their stores, and I became obsessed with the idea of like working at Whole Foods and being a dietitian at Whole Foods and doing like cooking classes and all of that they used to do. So I shadowed one, and I just loved like applying. Okay, we have all these hard science backgrounds and we know all these things about food. How do you apply it in a way that is the most approachable to people that are just eating food and aren't going to think that hard about it? So, I think I definitely kind of made those opportunities happen because I forced myself to like reach out to dietitians in different fields and that type of a thing. I'm trying to think of a professor stuck out. Gosh, I definitely wasn't one of those students that was like in office hours a lot. I was more like, okay, let me get these classes done. And then I was involved in like 700 extracurriculars, So, that was basically my college experience.
I think maybe it's part of college experience. One of my college roommates was also like in nutrition, and exact same scenario. She was studying. I remember like helping her make note cards at one point, and like hearing about her organic chemistry, and I was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
again, it makes sense, right? When you sit and think about it, but on the surface,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the first curriculum that you think about as a foundation to,
Right.
like that career path. So
Yeah.
it's funny hearing you, think about it in a similar way that my Josie was my old roommate that Josie also like described it to me as well. So
Yeah.
I also am kind of like, okay, Whole Foods, I would really love for you to bring that program back because one, I'll go to your class, and two, like I think cooking classes are such a fun way to spend your time and like meet new people, and it's just like a fun thing to go do, and also educational at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
sounds fabulous.
It's very, obviously very hands-on. It's just like a nice
Mm-hmm.
experience, especially in this day and age of like just being on screens all the time. It's nice to like cut something like and be around other people.
Use your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I always say, like as soon as I'm done with work, like I need to go do something with my hands, even if it's literally just like folding laundry, just like anything that's not
Space
like
out. Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
Oh, that's funny. So it sounds like your college experience, you were busy. You were trying to make the most out of your experience.
Mhm.
And to your point, like you said, quote, forcing yourself to reach out to some mentors. Where did that like inspiration come from? Did you have that recommended to you? Was it required by school, or was that was that your own ambition of, I want to know more. I want to excel. I want to, have a career for myself. I need to go talk to people and find more out about the profession.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say that it came from myself. We had, obviously people, professors are going to encourage you to do that. But so at KU, there was only like the closest I could get to nutrition was the community health degree. And so I actually had to go to Kansas State University to get my dietetics degree. So I felt like there wasn't really people at KU that were in dietetics specifically. So I just had to figure out like, who am I supposed to talk to? How am I supposed to do this? Like, is that something I want to do? Because then I have to like commit to more schooling. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I had to figure it out on my own because there weren't students around me that were becoming dietitians at all. It was a very like pave my own way because I didn't choose to go to a school that just like already had it as a program. I had to choose to like go to more school. So it was a big decision financially, like, is that something I'm going to do? And then also it's very confusing. Somehow it's very confusing, all the different things you have to do to become a dietitian. So I just felt like I was constantly like just trying to figure out what I was supposed to do while I was in Lawrence, Kansas, which is where KU was, and no one else, I just felt like, okay, I'm on my own little island trying to figure this out. So I think it really helped me feel like grounded to have those in-person experiences with dietitians because I could ask them questions, and it also made it feel like worth it, like having to figure out all this stuff and go to more school and that type of a thing. So yeah.
That's interesting. I would have thought that KU would have had dietetics, but as a K-Stater, I hope you had fun.
I did not live in Manhattan. I did online.
Fair,
So
fair. Totally fine.
Happily did not live there.
That is okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting that KU didn't have that, but it makes sense why you had to put yourself first and like go and talk to these folks and try to figure out what it is that you need. Because I imagine there's a lot of credentialing with it and requirement, not just to get the degree, but also to come out of school and feel prepared for a job, which speaking of your first job, you graduate.
Yep.
Where's Morgan heading to next?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm not even that old, but it feels like forever ago.
Everyone's first job feels like
700
eons
it's
ago.
Like a fever dream. It's
like,
like,
what did I do? Well, when I was finishing up, so when you're becoming a dietitian, it's not just the undergrad. Well, now they have to get masters. Thankfully, I was grandfathered in, didn't have to get my master's, but you also have to do a basically year-long internship, unpaid. Okay, just saying. Hopefully,
the bane of our existence.
Hopefully, I think some of them are starting to change. Whatever. The whole problem too is that it's like all women, so I won't go down that train, but.
We can.
Yeah. Right.
Noted.
No, but as it was, when I was starting to be a dietitian, I've also like always been really active. and was interested in sports nutrition as like a concept. I think a lot of dietitians, like, that sounds cool, that sounds fun, going into sports nutrition. And so my husband and I moved to South Bend, Indiana, actually, after we graduated. He was going to grad school there, and I was like, okay, well, at Notre Dame. And so I was like, oh, well, the coolest thing I could probably try to do is work for the nutrition team at Notre Dame. And so, yeah, through a series of events, got to be able to do that. And so as I was finishing up my internship program, I was working for them, and then was able to stay on board with them for a little bit longer, just like as a dietitian. So that was my first job. It kind of floated into like working for them and managing they call it a fuel station, which is where like all the athletes come and eat and whatever, talk to their dietitian about carbs and protein and all that fun stuff. And so that was actually a really, really cool experience. Like, loved it. And then I didn't continue sports nutrition, just because with sports nutrition, you have to be willing to go just wherever the job is in the country. And I feel like that's doable for people that we're in a different stage of life. And I'm like, I'm married. I'm not trying to go move anywhere I didn't feel passionate about it enough to where I'm like, I will go live in, like, I don't know, some random town in Wisconsin or something like that. So yeah. Sports nutrition was my first job at Notre Dame, and yeah, very different than what I'm doing now, but it was a super experience.
But you were, again, able to have that experience to be able to determine that, oh, this is maybe not like this specific niche path that I want to go down. You mentioned potentially physical therapy as a career path earlier, and both Sarah and I, our husbands, are PTs.
Oh my gosh.
And there's always that like glamorized working with and or for professional athletes, right? Like, it sounds so glamorous. It sounds like so cool that you're, a part of an organization that is like nationally known, globally known, depending on who it is. But then when you really look at it and you're like, I'm just at the mercy of their schedule.
Yeah.
And to your point, you follow them around to random places, and some people that might be really exciting to, and others you're like, wait a second, I would like some more maybe structure and stability on
not getting paid enough to make that worth it. At least as a dietitian, I know that maybe if you like, because how it goes is usually it's like you work for a university for a while, and then if you're lucky enough, you get to go up to like the professional level. And I think that becomes a little bit more balanced, but still, it's very at the mercy of, and a lot of hauling around Gatorade, like labor. Yeah.
Wow, my gosh, so much fun.
That's the epitome of like social versus reality. Literally. But I think that sentiment, Ellen, is honestly like applicable to a lot of different industries where like, on the outside looking in, it's like, I'm sure, Morgan, you could probably say the same for entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, especially nowadays with socials, like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, oh my God, it seems like this glamorous, controllable experience. And those that are like in the thick of it are like, that is the complete opposite. It is not this at all.
Also, when someone says they're an entrepreneur, I'm like what kind? Usually, they like
it's the severity term.
Totally. What are you actually doing? Because it's definitely not glamorous.
Yeah. Well, it has its ups and downs, I'm sure. But with the sports nutrition job, again, you had the experience, enjoyable, but you knew it wasn't for you. What was next?
Next, oh my gosh, I should have thought more about my actual career. That would be this podcast.
We can skip a year or two if you don't remember. That's totally fine.
I got this. Next, so we moved to Chicago, and I actually was looking for sports nutrition jobs in Chicago because I was like, well, I'm moving there and I like that space. There's a lot of people in Chicago that want sports nutrition jobs, and like, there's lots of nutrition students that will work for free to, fulfill those jobs. So anyway, again, I had just come off an unpaid internship, and I was like, okay, I'm done with the free labor. I'm an adult. This is over. Like, so I was looking for something that involved like maybe sports, but maybe, oh, and actually this comes back to physical therapy. So then I started working for this business. At the time it was called Health Hub Innovations, very like startup-y. AKA it was like one physical therapist with his own office, and essentially wanted to start the nutrition arm of like the business. And so he was hiring for a part-time dietitian. And then I saw another posting for a part-time like admin front desk person or whatever. And so basically I like applied and then pitched that I could just be both of those things. And yeah, that opportunity worked out. I was both of those things. That was in 2019. And that was, yeah, obviously right before the pandemic. And luckily we went through this whole rebrand. I'm sure you all know how that goes, but like we renamed it. It's Health Loft now. And I was very involved. I was the first hire. I didn't have like any ownership or anything like that, but just, it felt like I got to help start a business, but like with someone else's money. So that was my first time just being, extremely involved in like, how do we create a brand? How do we create like who we are online? How do we get clients to come to us? Like, what is our brand voice? Like going through all of that and really learning like, oh, you can just be what you are saying you want to be, and people will believe you and buy your service or buy your product or whatever. And that, yeah, it was just a cool experience to be able to go like, you really can create what you want to create. And if you're like 100% committing to it, then it could work, So yeah, that was awesome. Pandemic happened, and luckily we had already set up online abilities, or like, what is it even called? Online telehealth. Thank you. Luckily we had set up our telehealth already. So we were kind of at the front of that. Now telehealth, you mostly see your dietitian like via telehealth, which is wild, but we definitely had, there was a high need there. Everyone was stuck in their house, more time to think about how they felt, and not a lot of activity, just then, yeah, insurance started covering more nutrition services, just like 100%. So then it really upticked, and yeah, now there's like 30 dietitians that work for that company, and they're a nutrition only company. So there's no physical therapy.
Interesting.
So
that's a very interesting pivot. I am pro. I'll speak it till my face turns blue. I am pro work for a startup at some point in your career, because there's so many valuable lessons. But like, to be employee number one, unless you count yourself as employee number one, employee number two, you're the first hire.
Right.
Like
that's
you're
wild.
in the I feel like that's very rare. It's like most times maybe you're still in like the single digit land, or like, I don't know, 10th or whatever, but to be the first hire, I mean, even just setting up your email, like you have one person to turn to.
That's
like
crazy.
Who is a physical therapist, by the way.
Correct. Yeah. So like you're simultaneously figuring out how to run a business, but also like be a colleague, but somehow have some like mental ownership over a lot of the company. So I'm sure that was a wild ride, especially pre-COVID, but then especially during COVID and making the pivot to like primarily telehealth. How was it for you personally making the transition from in-person appointments to telehealth? Like, was there, I don't know, kind of like any learning curve with that, or like what was your experience initially?
Yeah, it was odd, but then I don't know. I think once you got used to it, it was fine. I mean, I missed being in person. I'm very much a people and type of, in-person person. And there's definitely like more of a connection. I think there's more of an ownership when you have to physically go into something. So that helps with like, okay, I'm committing to something. I'm working with someone. I have to physically go sit in the same room with them and talk about like things that we're working on. So that was definitely like a barrier for people. But I think as it's become more normal, I think honestly, like being on a screen, you can almost, I noticed that patients could almost talk more candidly about stuff, because it's like, yes, it's a person looking at you, but you're just in the room alone. So it's like, I can talk about the hard stuff and just kind of talk versus feel like you're sitting in person. Maybe like it reduces some of the like intense feelings of like being in a small room with one other person. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like it
that's
had its
interesting.
benefits too.
It's like a layer of protection
Yeah.
almost. That's like you're 1 degree removed, and
Right.
maybe that, to your point, could allow for that additional like saying the difficult things out loud and being
Yeah.
like truly honest.
Totally.
Hmm.
Totally. So, which I mean, I'm sure that has its downsides as well. But yeah, it was interesting. And then like working from home because I was in Chicago at that point and like, you know, city was shut down and we're in like on the 12th floor of a high rise with 1 bedroom. We chose to get a puppy. So we
Didn't we all?
Didn't we all?
got a puppy in the winter in Chicago during
Oops.
COVID. So
Mhm.
yeah. So it was, yeah. And it was a wild time in many ways.
At least, you have an excuse to go outside and like touch some grass, get some fresh air,
Yes.
because Lord knows that was a very isolated and inside
Yeah.
time as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, post startup, what point were you either looking for something new, or did something pull you out? And how big was the company at that point? Like, did you experience insane growth, or was that kind of after the point that you had left?
It was, I would say it was after. I felt like a lot of my job was kind of setting the foundation for like, here's the systems that
Cool.
we use, and here's how we
Mhm.
work with patients, and definitely was part of, you know, bringing on the first 6 or so additional dietitians. But it's grown a lot after I left, and I left. I reached a point where I just felt like I had been a part of it from the beginning. I went through the whole name change, like, and I felt like I was basically wanting more ownership in it than that was given to me. Like, I just felt
Mhm.
like, okay, I want to do all these things. Like, and I felt like a little bit restrained, and that could have been, that's like, I could look back and say that's a theme in my life. I feel like when I get involved in whatever it is, a student group on campus or whatever it is, like, I'm like, I want to be the leader. Like, I'm the one that's like, okay, here's how we should do it. So I was doing that with this job as well. And it was just the friction of like, this is someone else's company. But I just like want more and want more. So it just basically reached a point where like, I realized like, I just needed to move on, but that also combined with a ton of time. I mean, I was doing patient care, 40 hours a week. And that's when I was really specializing in digestive health. Talking with so many patients, I didn't start off with preferring digestive health patients, but then I just realized there were so many people with issues, whether it's IBS or just regular gut stuff. It was in the middle of COVID too. So everyone's like has time to
Mhm.
actually think about their body. Everyone is more stressed. So it's actually creating a lot more GI issues because your brain is connected to your intestines by nerves. So yeah, there was lots of like digestive talk. And so I just chose to really dive into that at that point. Got really interested in helping people with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So now it's like normal to talk about like IBS girlies, but I was doing that before it was like cool and,
Mhm.
specialized in, it's called the low FODMAP diet. And we could put something in the notes. It's not even worth going into because it's very like sciencey nerdy, but it is a really helpful protocol for people with IBS that just don't know what's causing their symptoms. It's a way to help figure out like, is it onion? Is it garlic? It's kind of intense because you can't have a lot of the things that just feel like normal and healthy food. But there's a protocol to go through it with a dietitian. And that's what I loved because it felt like a structured space to be able to kind of take someone on a journey of figuring out how to help them feel better and just live their life better. But so yeah, that was happening while also just feeling like I want more from this job, but I'm super passionate about the digestive health space. And I became really like a brand expert in types of foods that were for this type of patient. And I just realized that I found myself recommending like, 5 different brands. Um, And I just realized like, okay, there just needs to be more food products for this patient population that is yummy, that is convenient, and that doesn't make them feel alienated, you know? A lot of times when food products are targeted towards like a specific clinical thing, it feels very like, oh, this isn't going to taste good, or like, this feels like not fun to eat. And, you know, in general, most people that are seeing a dietitian could probably work on their relationship with food, but especially people with digestive health issues, you know, they don't know what to eat. They feel like crap all the time. There's just not this like positive feeling around food. So I was really passionate about just like, okay, like what can we eat? And, you know, just helping to create that space where we can still feel excited about food, but still be figuring out what is going on and what's causing these symptoms. That leads to Unbothered. I won't dive into that quite yet, but that was the why. And so those two things of like, okay, I'm passionate about digestive health. There's something like I'm really interested in like the brand space. I'm telling all of my patients to buy from these brands. Why can't I make a brand that a dietitian would tell a patient to buy? And then like feeling a little bit trapped in the position that I was in. So yeah.
Sure. I think amongst a lot of things, one of my favorite parts of having the podcast is learning like, oh, this was the moment.
Yeah.
This is like the catalyst to what leads you to your current role. And it sounds like for you to have the experience of joining the startup, being able to find your niche and really became that subject matter expert in health, but also too, to like have that experience with people and to be able to work with individuals and like gain those reps and know like, okay, eventually when I start this business, like these are the people that I'm serving. Like I've worked hand in hand with them to, you know, help serve and like better their lives. I feel like that, like that emotional connection I think is so valuable. So it's crazy because if you told yourself like when you join this startup, oh, okay, by choosing to do this in this many years, you're going to be doing this. I think that's always
in a kitchen.
Like,
okay,
I love that part of everyone's story where it's like, okay, this decision leads to this, right? And you know, like the butterfly effect of it all. But I love that you're also not hinting, but like leading to the point of like food is such a part of the human experience. And like we were saying, you know, after work when you're done, you just like want to go and touch something, and like cooking dinner like puts you around people, or you know, like dinner parties or snacks, or just like even eating popcorn by yourself on the couch. Like there's such a human element to food that it doesn't have to just be like fuel, right? It can be this experience. So I love that. But you're teeing us up obviously perfectly. So tell us how like the idea started, the first rounds of, you know, like making this product. Did you start with crackers? Like the whole ideation process. I want to get into that.
It is wild. And everyone's process and how brands are created are totally different. There's like the route of someone starting with millions of dollars of investment and they just have an idea and pump a ton of money into it. And my route was definitely like DIY, you know, starting to make it on my own. I knew that sourdough was the way, like the mode I wanted to use, because sourdough is low FODMAP if it's actually fermented for over 12 hours. So it has to be like a real fermented sourdough, which I have to say that because a lot of sourdough products, if you just go buy a random loaf of bread from, I don't know, Kroger, it says sourdough on it. It's not fermented. They've added sourdough flavor to it. So you really have to just see.
Sad.
The more you know.
Wait, what?
Even if it's Whole Foods, like I can almost, I mean, I shouldn't say this because I'm trying to get into Whole Foods right now. But like most, I mean, brands, you can say there's no regulation on the word sourdough.
I feel like I have discovered something and I'm kind of upset about it. Like,
I know.
I love sourdough bread.
We need to face the facts here because, like.
Okay, wait. So how does one, sorry to interrupt, but like if I was to look at the ingredients list, is there a telltale sign that I'm like, this is real? It's not just like flavored?
So it's not like the flavoring is a bad type of flavoring where it's like food dye chemicals. The flavor that they use is a sourdough starter. Like oftentimes it's just like they'll put dried sourdough starter or something in with it. So it gives it that flavor. It's not like it's anything bad. It's just
Right.
It's just
Not true.
It's not
Sourdough.
fermented
it's
truly.
not a fermented.
I'm so
It tastes
bummed.
like sourdough, and it has sourdough starter, but that doesn't mean that it's been fermented. So honestly, like you probably won't even. A lot of times, if it says yeast in the ingredients, that means it's been like just quick fermented, like like regular bread, and they've just added sourdough flavor into it. So if it has yeast, that means it's not fermented for very long.
We've
Okay,
been
good
lied
to
to.
know. Good
I've
to
been
know.
lied to.
Read
I
the
know. I'm
labels.
like, how do I educate? Like that's a whole nother piece of my marketing that like there's lots of room there because sourdough is very popular. I don't want to get off track, but yeah, sourdough is very popular right now. And I think people just buy it thinking, oh, gut friendly sourdough, this and that, but it has to be fermented. So the way that I communicate it is that, you know, at the top of my bag, it says like fermented sourdough for easy digestion. And you'll see on the bag that there will be some type of call out for that because it's more expensive to ferment it. It takes longer. You have to figure out where am I going to hold all this fermented dough? You know, it's not just like a mix and bake type of situation. So it's, you know, it is a more expensive process. That's why like you go to the farmer's market and a loaf is like $12 or whatever the case may be. Like, well, they've had to do a lot of work and labor to make that happen. So brands will be proud about it if they've fermented it. So if it's not, if there's no fermentation comment on there, that means it's definitely not fermented.
Well, I have certainly learned something new today, so I can definitely leave more knowledgeable.
Great.
And, you know, to kind of continue with the sourdough rabbit hole,
Yeah.
I've had that on my list as like a 2025 goal.
Yeah.
I have a sourdough starter literally right over here.
Oh my God.
It's up here
Me
because
too.
upstairs
I see
gets
mine.
warm.
Like that is my goal, and I think if this is this is the clearest sign I've received in a while that is something that I need to
Gotta do it. Yeah, DIY.
Yeah. Well, and then I always tell people like you can give up. It's okay, and I'll give you crackers that are fermented. And like if you don't, if your starter dies, it's okay. I can give you another starter.
I've got a backup.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Enough with sourdough rabbit hole. I know it's an important aspect of your brand and discovery, but talk to us again a little bit more of like the brand discovery. And I liked Sarah's question of like, did you lead with crackers or did you lead with like branding and the idea? Talk us through that.
Yeah. So I knew sourdough was a thing because like we're saying, people are excited about it. It was like the post-pandemic, everyone was making it. And it was like the happy part of my conversation where we could be like, okay, you can't have this, you can't have garlic, you can't have onion, like all this, but you can have sourdough. So let's go to the farmer's market. It became this sort of like experience of, you know, okay, I can have this. I love sourdough. This is so awesome. So I knew I wanted to do sourdough. I decided, I actually started, this is a whole other tangent, but I started by doing sourdough pizza pop-ups in Chicago. I would like pop up at breweries and different events where I would make on the spot, like in an uni pizza oven, sourdough pizza. And I actually made it low FODMAP, but I didn't tell anyone just because, again, it sounds clinical. I just wanted people to know this is a yummy sourdough pizza. And yeah, I did the summer, I did like a whole Chicago summer of pop-ups basically, but I knew I wanted to do a shelf-stable product just because, you know, as I was going about this whole process, I'm big on like finding mentors, finding people in your space to talk to and not just go and like do it on your own. I talked with so many people before picking like, okay, crackers, is it pasta? Is it pizza? Is it, and crackers just felt like, okay, this is the most doable thing. If I'm starting without outside funding, this is something that I can make, that I could maybe hire a couple other people to help me make. I could sell at the farmer's market. I don't have to worry about shelf stability, you know, like keeping it cold or whatever. Like, so yeah, that's why I started with crackers. Honestly, it felt the most approachable. And now it's funny looking at that because now I'm in the middle of finding a larger manufacturer for our product. And turns out crackers are one of the harder things to manufacture. Weirdly enough, you wouldn't think, because I don't know.
Learned another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you landed on crackers. I'm assuming then like have the business name. Like what was the 6 months of taking this full time?
For 6 months. So I was baking bread and actually doing some pizzas while I was seeing patients. So I'd have a little break. I'd go like do my little prep, and then I'd come back and act like I was like just doing dietetic work. So that was a lot of it, is like I'm doing both to start. But then summer of 2022 is when I just was like quit my job and then jumped full into that. And that was pizza summer. So yeah, that was awesome. Just being able to like talk to customers and just put myself out there, honestly. And then that winter is when I really dove into creating the packaged product. And I did an incubator program in Chicago called the Sprouts program through this place called the Hatchery. And it's a space in Chicago that's good for like helping foster brands. And it was just like we can help you step by step. How do you get your Chicago food license? How do you find a shared kitchen? Like, what are all the little, and I hate paperwork, but helping you with like what are all the paperwork all the boring stuff you need to do to be able to create this brand. So that was a lot of the first 6 months, and I'm still figuring out all of that stuff, but just how to make a brand and what are all, like, how do you make an LLC? Like, what, just a lot of faking it till you make it, or finding out after the fact, like, oh, I probably should be working with an accountant at this point. And, just
the really sexy stuff.
Yeah. I put things like that off for as long as possible, and because they're not cheap. So yeah, really it was just figuring out who do I need to get connected with in Chicago? What programs should I get connected with? How do I make a cracker? So it was lots of, research, like my own, like Googling sourdough products and playing with different stuff. And I knew certain standards that it had to be to fit within, because I wanted my product to be low FODMAP because I was still this very specific patient driven. So I knew I had to use active sourdough versus discard sourdough. So just like trying to figure out, how do I create a product that I want for this patient population, but mostly something that is going to taste good and then I can make in larger quantities. So that was a lot of the first 6 months.
Yeah. I'm sensing a theme here of just figuring it out as you go. Like even in college, when you were reaching out to your mentors of, this is, I think, the path I want to go down. I need to like start reaching out to people from, again, like your own ambitions. I love seeing that like weaved throughout your story, and it sounds like it's brought you success so far. So keep going.
Taking one step at a time. So
fake it till you make it, honestly.
Yeah.
Last question before the big one, but bring us up to date. Like, what's something you're super proud of with your brand currently, and maybe something that you're looking to continue doing, or something that's like big and exciting coming up?
I mean, I'm proud that I have a brand that, like I was saying, I was at Expo West last week, and I had a few people who were like, oh, like, I love your product. I'm getting random people that have had it that, I don't know and haven't met. And that's really cool to have a brand that people know about that I don't know them at all, and they've just either seen it or tried it or whatever. So that is a really cool feeling, to have created something that people love, that you don't have to say that they love it because they know me. So that is super awesome. And I think, that's pretty basic, but just like I created a product that's sold in grocery stores. Like, that's cool.
Huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I'm super proud of. And I think when you're creating like this type of company, when you're creating it, I think everyone's like, oh, I want to exit and sell for millions and millions of dollars. That feels like that's like the only way to define success. And I do have investors now. So, someday that may be the case, and that is part of what I'm aiming for. But I think along the way, you have to figure out, like, how do I make myself feel proud of what I'm doing as I'm going? Because what if that big thing doesn't happen? Like, how do you reframe feeling proud of yourself before the big thing that you've put on a pedestal type of a thing? So
totally
making a product that's sold in stores is awesome. And then now, I'm talking to like larger retail chains, and it's cool to get affirmation from those dream retailers, whether it's Whole Foods or whatever, just like, oh, wow, you like my product and you think your customers like would like it too. So that's something upcoming. I'm not saying I'm getting on shelf or anything, but even just to be able to like talk to the team I need to talk to, it's so hard. There's there's thousands of brands that are trying to do that. So to kind of find myself in that sort of space and thinking like, oh, I wanted to be a Whole Foods dietitian. Like it feels like a very full circle moment.
Totally.
Yeah. Not to like go back to what we were saying about glamorizing entrepreneurship, but I bet there's something really just internally so cool about seeing a physical manifestation of this idea that you had and seeing it celebrated with other people. Like as somebody who's an employee of a company, I can only celebrate in so much and then like close my laptop and I'm done with it. But right. have a product where it's like literally your blood, sweat, and tears, and you know exactly what it took to get it there, I think is just so neat. Yeah. So you can again teed us up, but the big question for you, Morgan, how do you define success for yourself?
Wow. If I had the answer. I don't know. I'm still figuring that out, honestly. That's like my candid answer. I don't know how I'm defining success. I think that's something that I need to figure out. What I'm doing is like, there's always more to be done. And there's always like the next thing, like, oh, I'm in 60 stores. Like if I would have said that at the beginning, that would have felt like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But now I'm like, I find myself presenting it to people. I was like, oh, we're only in about 60 stores, so it's always like the benchmark is always moving. So I don't know the answer to that. And I need to have a better way to define success as I go. This year, I tried to create like at the beginning of the year, just like 2025 goals of just like, so then I can at least look back at that and be like, okay, you got to do this, you did this, and feeling like I achieved the goals that I had for this year and kind of looking at it in smaller chunks versus just like, I want to be in this, I want to sell for this. And it's just these like floaty things.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's how I've tried to do it this year.
It's always a difficult question.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, and Sarah, I think like a friend of yours maybe recommended this, that ABC always be celebrating the small things.
I think that's great.
And it sounds like as you're figuring out where you go next, you're celebrating the small things, and that can be success to you,
Yeah. Yep. Yes. I think that's good.
All right, Morgan, we are going to jump into some rapid fire questions. So number one, what is one thing you cannot, oh my God, I'm going to screw it up. What is one thing you can't, one thing you cannot live without to make it through the workday?
I need 2 cups of really good coffee, hot black coffee. My favorite shop is Oddly Correct in Kansas City. Yeah. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. It's even just like sip on half of a cup. I need to make the coffee, and that's like a ritual.
Definitely.
Even just like the smell, like the experience, right? Everything about it.
It's great. Yes.
Yeah. People who don't understand coffee culture, I don't understand you.
Yeah.
What in your time and working, what was one of your like workplace pet peeves?
Oh God.
Besides unpaid internships.
Unpaid internships. A pet peeve. I don't know. I would say micromanaging, or people that like didn't let me do what I wanted to do. Say that.
Also fair.
Yeah. It's very true. Yeah. And you kind of alluded to this one earlier too, but I'm curious if your perspective has changed now that you are a business owner. But do you prefer in-person, hybrid, or remote work?
I love in-person. I feel like if I can get in the same room as someone, I'm going to get a yes. I'm going to get something is going to happen. So I will always, if I know someone lives far away, I'm like, when can we at least get on a Zoom call so I can like make eye contact with you? So I think that's very, very important to do in person as much as possible.
That's
less
true.
Convenient, but I think it's more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for joining us and telling us a bit more about you, about the brand. If you don't already, make sure to follow Morgan on socials along with Unbothered Foods. We'll include everywhere that you can find her. But Morgan, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yay, good. It's always fun, like recalling and kind of stirring up things that you've done. I hope that you're able to see that you've accomplished a lot. So everyone, remember, at the end of the day, it's literally just a job. We'll see ya.